Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston born and raised, H-Town Rebel Space Cadet Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, folks of all stripes, and distinguished guests, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans from a diehard Houston sports fan. I, of course, am Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan podcaster. I'm an actor, improviser, writer, creative multi-hyphenate, and of course, and most importantly, I'm a proud Houston native, and I have the receipts to prove it. Do y'all remember Mams in the Heights? I remember Mams in the Heights, the amazing snow cones. I've eaten an astounding amount of snow cones in Houston, Texas, and I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer here in Los Angeles, and now, well, I'm podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You start absent-mindedly calling it the 10 instead of I-10, and you start podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. Space Cadet Sports started as a passion project because most media is infuriating as a diehard long-term fan of the Houston Astros. Here we aren't doom and gloom casual Houston fans, or worse, the national media haters. We love our teams from Houston and root them on, but we also try to discuss the ins and outs of them without too much homerism. The key word, of course, here is try. At this point, I always want to welcome returning listeners, and of course, welcome new listeners to what my brothers call the Paul Broadpod Ball Blog. Hey, brothers. Shout out to my brothers. Shout out to all my regular listeners and Arrested Development fans. And please, if you know, please, this is where I ask you to check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience depending on your interpretation of my pronunciation there. We're recording this transmission here in sunny Los Angeles, where I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, the Ross to my Frasier. Carla the dog is here with me, as always. Listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast. I've got the cool takes. I am, of course, here to help you stay calm and reasonable throughout the baseball season, throughout football season, throughout basketball season. No days off, sports fans from Houston. We love to talk about our Houston teams here. On this episode, the Yankees lose. Correa, Javier, Bregman, they all come back home for an Astros win. Panic sets in as Josh Hader hits the IL with shoulder discomfort. We also check in with the Texans as preseason is officially underway. And the Rockets as well. We get to preview some of their matchups for next season. Before we completely start this podcast episode, of course, I want to wish a good day, mates, to all my regular listeners. And let's get to it. Folks, the Houston Astros beat the Yankees in the Bronx. You love to see it. Roll that beautiful bean footage. If you're having a bad day, if it's been a tough one, just log on to TikTok. Just go see a bunch of fan edits of Jose Altuve hitting home runs in Yankee Stadium. It was a great three-game series there. We had Hunter Brown, we had Framber Valdez, and we had Serenity now, Jason Alexander, Vandalay Industries on the mound for the Houston Astros. If you've just now started paying attention to the Houston Astros and you're like, why is George Costanza pitching for the Houston Astros in Yankee Stadium, no less? Welcome back to welcome back to being a Houston Astros fan. A lot of people drop out for the summer. Some people don't even start watching baseball until the fall. But I'm not going to judge you here. I'm glad you've chosen me to be your guide back into the baseball season. But, honestly, some of the highlights and lowlights from the series, Framber had a tough game once again. Some fans are off the Framber chain. I don't know what it is about Framber Valdez and Houston Astros fans, but Houston Astros, you guys turn on him so quickly. 1 week he's an ace, he's a franchise, he has one bad inning, and you're like, well, he's not that good, we should have traded him. I get it, there are some tough innings from Framber Valdez, but overall, if you're actually watching the games, I famously say, yeah, I'm a fan, I'm not a journalist. I might not, I don't have sources over here. I try to make sure everything I say is as accurate as possible, or at least I come back and eat the words if I report an inaccurate report to y'all. But I'm a comedian. I'm a goofball. But truthfully, I watch all of these games. That is what I do. I watch all of the games. I read an extreme amount of Astros news. I listen to more podcasts than I'd like to admit. And truthfully, I think if you just watch the highlights of Framber Valdez, I understand that you might have a flawed view of how consistent he can be. Yeah, everybody has bad innings. When you pitch 200 innings in a season, you're going to have some bad ones. I truthfully think that I hate seeing fans just turn on Framber, have this Jekyll and Hyde relationship with him. Yeah, it was a tough one, yeah, but I feel like he's going to bounce back. He's had a great season. He's had an ace-style season, but getting to something positive in the starting pitching from New York, from the New York series, I should say, from your Houston Astros starting pitchers, Jason Alexander was great in that series. I think we've all been nervous to see how George Costanza does out there on the mound. He's had some tough starts. He's starting to put together some good starts here as of late. So much so that he is obviously the one still in the rotation as we're starting to get some of these starting pitchers back from the IL. So shout out to Jason Alexander. Yada yada yada. He did it again, folks. He really did have a great start. So we're looking to see if the veteran left-hander can maintain his position in the starting rotation. It will become more and more difficult as more and more pitchers come back from the IL. But on the other side of the ball here, folks, Jose Altuve loves getting booed in New York. I love to see them get all feisty, get all sad. They get all emotional about Jose Altuve in New York. And, I guess that's just what happens when you have a strained relationship with your daddy. It's a little bit combative at times. But Jose Altuve loves getting booed in New York. Getting to see him hit those home runs was it was manna from heaven. Yes, it was anointed on me. I loved seeing it. I'm sure y'all loved seeing it too. Getting to see the Houston Astros beat the New York Yankees in a series in New York with Jose Altuve and Carlos Correa being the big bats that break hearts. It brought some nostalgia. It was good to see. I didn't think I'd see that again. I thought in order to see Correa and Altuve beat New York again, I'd have to go watch old games. So there was just a certain special yumminess for me in this series. You saw some of the Yankees fans wear some paper bags on their heads now. It's starting to get to that point of the season for them. It has not been the easiest season for Yankees fans. I know this because I know Yankees fans. Believe it or not, I'm out here in Los Angeles, and on an everyday basis, I'm dealing with Dodger fans. I'm dealing with Yankees fans. I am in enemy territory, folks. It is tough. I go outside here in Los Angeles, and I have I have all kinds of people harassing me for the way that I look and for the hat that I wear, apparently, folks. It's obvious that Yankees fans have a lot of resentment for Astros, but you love to see them get all frustrated that the season is not going their way, and you love to see the Astros help push them over that edge. It's tough. I truthfully think that the Yankees could bounce back, but in the AL East, I understand that things are a lot tighter and feel a lot more tense over there. Because I know that because Astros fans, we're sitting here in first place in the AL West, and there's so much hand-wringing, there's so much stressing out going on about our team. So I understand Yankees fans are stressing out there. You love to see that Corey Bellinger throw. I mean, what was that? That was nuts, folks. I'm not gonna lie. I believe that was a Sunday game where Cody was just had such a bad throw. You love to see that happen to him, but you also you see stuff like that. You see how the New York Yankees have been playing defense this season, and it really makes you grateful for the Astros' commitment to defense and general fundamentals in general, but it really comes to help in these games like this, when you see the Astros really committed to defense, committed to figuring out how to have aggressive base running. I know there's going to be some fans out there that will point to Tony Perez-Chica, potentially, being a little aggressive, telling people to either go home on that, with that big windmill, or perhaps Jose Altuve and his base running aggressiveness. I get it. Jose Altuve is always going to be an outlier. He's always going to be hustling and doing a little extra. And Tony Perez-Chica is here to help the Houston Astros become more aggressive on the base pads. Even with that little aggressiveness on the base pads, I really think that the Astros commitment to the fundamentals can be seen, and they help out a lot in games like this. The Yankees are kind of spiraling right now as a team, and it's wild to see them so terrible on defense. But this whole team has had the yips at some point. So you see stuff like that, and you're just grateful that the Astros are really committed to team defense. And there are times you've seen the yips kind of happen to Altuve. They've happened to Pena in the past. You want to knock on wood. You don't want that to start happening, but when it starts happening as a team, those can lead to some very difficult times. My friend Peter, New York Yankees fan who texts me all the time, I was telling him that these were going to be some close games, and he thought I was crazy. He thought I was trolling him a little bit, and I was like, no. I know the Yankees haven't been too good, but the Astros played down to talent. Not only that, but also, the Astros they're trying to find their offense still, and they really, their offense was found a little bit there in New York. I think they're finding some swagger, some momentum. There was that one point where Carlos Correa had hit a home run, and people were saying that they thought he was doing the buzzer kind of movement troll, or kind of pointing to his chest, or pointing, trying to do some kind of trolling thing towards Yankees fans about a buzzer. He says he was just saying, not me, but God, but folks, at the end of the day, you love to see Yankees fans completely in their emotions here. Come on, Carla, you can come sit with me. It's okay. You love to see it. The Astros will play the Yankees one more time before the season ends. They'll be hosting the Yankees at Daikin Park. So we will get to see what Yankees fans think and what their emotional state is after another series with the Houston Astros. It was a family reunion, or actually, we're going to talk about the Astros family reunion on the other side of a quick break. We'll be right back.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Rebel, Space Cadet Sports.
And we're back. Folks, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Paul Salazar Jr. Just in case you're, like a vinyl style, you're just starting in the middle of the record here, welcome back to the podcast. As I prematurely, I guess is the word I'm looking for. As I prematurely said earlier, I mentioned that the Astros had a family reunion, and they did. After a long road trip, the Astros returned to Daikin Park. They have a family reunion. Correa's back. Christian Javier is back. You even have Alex Bregman back. Abraham Toro's back. Not a lot of people know that Toro's actually playing with the Red Sox now. A little reunion with Alex Cora over there for Toro. But the family reunion, a lot of people were very excited, not only to see Bregman, of course, but to see Correa back in an Astros jersey. And in the City Connects no less. So it was a great day at Daikin Park, and not just because it was a reunion, but because of the result of yesterday's game against Boston. Alex Bregman did get that nice tribute video. It was good to see the fans go crazy for Breggy. He deserves it. We still stan Alex Bregman on this podcast, unless we're playing the Red Sox. During that time when we're playing them, we are fully against Alex Bregman as a baseball player, but we love Breggy here. When he came back to Texas, he said that he went straight to Whataburger. That's a man after my own heart. Sadly, if you are after my own heart, Breggy, you might want to get your cholesterol checked. I've eaten way too many burgers. I have a commitment to fitness now. I'm working out more regularly. Now, my cholesterol isn't that bad, but I do love me some burgers, and as I'm getting older, I'm watching it, folks. That's it. That's all we'll say. I'm not. Hopefully, I'll maintain my health. I won't just eat burgers all the time. But Alex Bregman not only came back to Texas for some home cooking, for some Whataburgers, but he also homered in his first at-bat after getting a standing ovation, after getting all that love. Breggy hit a homer to Crawford boxes, not missing a beat since he's left, but the Astros offense didn't let him remain in the spotlight for long. It was very generous of them to let Breggy have his moment, let him hit his homer, but I was also very happy that they didn't just completely let him have the spotlight. It's good to see a lot of batters getting better, having better games. In the bottom of the third, sorry, I was trying to find my notes there. Carlos Correa singled on grounder to right field and scored Cam Smith. Christian Walker hit a double there. Like that. We obviously didn't waste too much time getting the runs back when Alex Bregman hit a home run in the first. He scored. Sorry, I should have mentioned earlier. I thought I did that was a 2-run homer. So the Astros, got on top in the third there. And later on in the game, you love to see it. Chas McCormick hits his first home run of the season in the bottom of the third. And Ramon Urias hits a home run in the bottom of the fifth on to left field and scored, and that was a 2-run home run, scoring Christian Walker. So it was good to see that offense really pick up. You love to see, obviously, some unsung heroes there with Chazzy Fizz going 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs, and Ramon Urias having a day. You love to see Ramon Urias, not the Mexicano out there, not just for that reason, but he's really been impressing lately with his defense, and now kind of figuring it out with his bat. He was kind of under the wire trade that not a lot of people knew too much about, especially with Carlos Correa being traded, I believe, like the next day. It's not, Sarah, my fiance, my partner, she watches a lot of baseball with me. When I say that I watch every baseball game, I mean it. You can ask her. She'll be like, yeah, that guy watches every single baseball game. He watches some of them twice. I don't know what's wrong with him. And I'm like, I'm just watching the condensed game so that I can make sure I remember this when I podcast later. But Sarah was like, who is that guy? She saw him make some amazing plays at second. She saw him hit that home run. She's like, this guy's great. I think that's when you impress Sarah as a new player for the Houston Astros. I feel like you kind of break through. Ramon Urias was 3 for 4 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs in that game. On a negative note, though, we do have to mention Hector Neris yesterday. He had a rough day, and it was tough to see him have that day when he just hit 10 years of playing time as a major league player. So it was great to celebrate him. That is a difficult thing to do. But Hector Neris has really had a rough season that really kind of accumulated or kind of led to a really tough day on the mound yesterday when the Astros were up. In 2/3 of an inning, he gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, and gave up a home run. And it was so tough because he was obviously got 2 outs in the inning. He was just 1 out away from getting out of it and just couldn't do it. And it was heartbreaking because honestly, you're looking for this guy to get a win. You want him to you want him to bounce back, and he's just been having some struggles. He's been inconsistent, and he was just so close to perhaps having just not the best inning, but just getting out of the inning, and he couldn't do it. And we'll get to some more Hector Neris news later in this podcast, but it did not end well for Hector in this game, and overall did not end well for him with the Astros this season. Iniel de los Santos had to come in to help Hector Neris, and he got out of the inning fairly easily, but there was a panic moment for the Astros when it did not seem like Josh Hader was warming up in the bullpen, and De Los Santos was going to get the save. De Los Santos was not able to get out of the ninth. The Boston Red Sox offense did wake up a little bit in the later innings there. De Los Santos was able to get the hold, and Bennett Sousa came in and got his fourth save of the season for the Astros. Christian Javier did start this game. This was, out of all the stories in this game, this is one I did not want to forget. But Christian Javier coming back from Tommy John surgery, a lot of people were worried. He's coming back fairly quickly compared to a lot of Astros pitchers. And, with the Astros pitchers, kind of not having the best of luck with their road back from injury, a lot of people were worried. How's Christian Javier going to do? Well, he had a fairly great game, pitching 5 innings, giving up 3 hits, 2 runs. 2 of them were earned runs, obviously. 2 walks and 5 strikeouts, giving up that 1 home run to Alex Bregman. And wow, picking up his first win of the season, obviously. Is he back already? Baby, is he already back? Christian Javier just went out there and competed. He really shoved. It was a tough one because obviously you're hoping for just him to have a complete return to form already, but he went out there and he competed, and I'm really thinking that maybe Christian Javier is ready and he is back, and I hope so because we're going to need him. Getting back to the 8th and 9th inning there when Hader was not warming up, Sarah was sitting there watching the game with me, and she was like, why is Hader not warming up? She started worrying, and I was like, uh-oh. Yeah, he should be warming up. I think this would be a situation for Hader, obviously, not just a closing situation, but I believe that you would want him to pitch this unless there was something wrong with him. Well, folks, Josh Hader, just about an hour ago, they announced that Josh Hader is on the 15-day IL with a left shoulder strain. The other moves that the team announced is Sean Dubin was reinstated from the IL. Left-hander Colton Gordon was recalled from AAA, and obviously those are 2 moves. What's the other move? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the foreshadowing was Hector Neris was DFA'd today. And that's just tough to see, but obviously with the Astros bullpen the way it is, they're looking for more competitive arms right now. And Hector Neris, we wanted to give him a chance. We wanted the veteran to work. We would love to have Hector Neris not only on this team for being a good relief pitcher, but we wanted him there for leadership. Unfortunately, with Josh Hader out and the bullpen kind of struggling a little bit here, we need an arm that we can depend on a little bit more than we were able to with Hector Neris this season. I mean, it's sadly, I love Hector Neris, but this season, I mean, he maybe gave us 1 inning of work where it was dependable, I guess. Outside of that, it was a little shaky, and, it was giving Rafael Montero, and, it was just tough to see because we love Hector Neris on the podcast, but I think it was the necessary move. So best of luck to Hector Neris. We do hope he finds a place to pitch. We do hope he can kind of figure it out, make some adjustments. We wish it could have worked out with the Astros. But moving on, so now what does that mean? So obviously Abreu closes, right? That's simple. Brian Abreu will be the closer for the team until Josh Hader is back. But this comes at a time, as I kind of mentioned earlier, when the bullpen is taxed and showing signs of strain. Brian King was used as a seventh inning bridge guy most of this season. Him and Sousa kind of taking that slot with Brian King, I would say, having more seventh inning time. But that the young lefty King has been struggling lately. So Sousa has been used more as an option for Joe Espada. I feel like Joe Espada has been more confident in Sousa lately, and will probably be used as one of the setup men in this case. Obviously, in this last game, Eniel de los Santos was used in the 8th and, was even allowed to keep pitching into the 9th. So maybe situationally, de los Santos can be used in a right-hander situation. Or maybe, he'll go with Stephen Okert, who has been a little bit more dependable, or I should say more dependable this season. De los Santos is very new to the team. So maybe Okert will have more time there, or maybe Caleb Ort will have some chances there. All in all, it looks like the bullpen will be used in this A.J. Hinchian style where everybody eats, and it's just kind of situational matchups as to who gets what sometimes, or what part of the lineup the team is about to face. Joe Espada said figuring out the pitchers without Hader and Abreu was fun in his in the Brian McTaggart interview that I read on MLB, so, I do think that to some degree it is going to be kind of matchup based, and that is kind of going to be fun for Joe Espada, as long as you're winning, obviously. But I guess for me, with my limited knowledge, obviously Abreu's a closer. That I don't think anybody would disagree with that, and if you do, I don't know where you're coming from, but I would say Bennett Sousa and Stephen Okert are the guys that I would slot in as those setup men. But do you think the Astros go after another veteran arm off the waiver wire? There's definitely been talks of like Ryan Presley. I don't think that's the answer. Not that I don't like Press, but I think Presley would want would very much be interested in what his role is, and I don't think he would want to be used situationally out of the bullpen in the 6th and 7th innings sometimes. Having a veteran with the clout of Ryan Presley on your team is a little more difficult to navigate than a veteran player off the waiver wire that is kind of just okay with getting the innings that he is assigned. I do think for that reason, that's why they're not going to go after Presley, because it just, they don't want to have to massage a situation that, might end up in them unceremoniously DFAing Ryan Presley, which would be heartbreaking for Astros fans, for the organization, and for Ryan Presley and his family. So I don't think that they will do that, but let me know if you think that they're going after, if you think that they're going to kind of do the waiver wire thing. Also to mention that I think is going to be where they're going here is, Christian Javier and Spencer Getty are already back. McCullers, Brandon Walter, and J.P. France are all, in the mix for returning in August. So it might be time, to hold setup man auditions for the playoffs from the rotation. From the back end of the rotation, which one of you guys would be okay being a setup man? Who can do it? So I think that's kind of what's going to happen this month. Who do you think could go from the rotation to the bullpen job? I know a lot of people, including myself, have said McCullers would be a great late inning relief guy with that slider. But I don't know if that's something he's up for or yet is healthy enough for right now. Obviously, he's been dealing with that blister. It could be a thing that he might have to show that he still has that command before he even gets that opportunity. I do not know if it is McCullers, but let me know what you think. Let me know if you in your mind, how do you organize this bullpen if you were Joe Espada? Today's game, it's Superman Day at the ballpark. I love the new Superman movie. I have actually a review. I review movies. I do a comedy blog as well as my Space Cadet sports blog. You can check that out later. I'll tell you where to get the link, but check out my Superman movie review on spacecadetpaul.substack.com. But today, Today's game, we have Spencer Arrighetti on the mound for the Houston Astros in his second game back from his IL stint. He's 1-2 this season with a 7.43 ERA and 13 1/3 of an inning pitched with 13 strikeouts and a 1.58 whip. So very limited sample size, but we are looking for Spencer Arrighetti to take off. We are ready for our spaghetti to be warm. No more cold spaghetti. We're hoping he bounces back in this game. He will be pitching against Boston and Dustin May, who is 6-8 with a 4.98 ERA with 107 2/3 of an inning pitched on the season with 101 strikeouts and a 1.37 whip. Honestly, a little bit of reality. A lot of times, I can be a homer. Go! But this could be a long game for Spencer Arrighetti. If we're looking at this realistically, he obviously can struggle sometimes with his command. And if he struggles with his command against Boston, it can be a long day. We obviously want to limit the use of our bullpen now more than ever. But we do have some long relievers now with Sean Dubin and Colton Gordon coming back, right? So it wouldn't be the end of the world if Spencer Arrighetti isn't able to go deep into this game. Obviously, that would be ideal so we keep people fresh. But there is a reality in which Spencer Arrighetti, has some command struggles. So we're looking for some sharp command from Spencer Arrighetti. We're looking for him to attack the strike zone, trust his stuff, and get 5 innings, so that to keep the Astros bullpen situation ideal. But also we want those 5 innings to also keep the game close. So I believe the Astros lineup is going to have to play superhero today. Patient at bats to hopefully work some walks and pass the baton to the next guy until they can do damage on mistake pitches. The lineup is going to have to heat up today. Jesus Sanchez is starting in right field today. I do think this is a story that some fans have been following. They're seeing that Cam Smith is not playing as many games as he used to, and he has been struggling a bit as of late. Well, folks, that's what happens in your first full Major League Baseball season when you played collegiate baseball the previous year. It's a big jump in wear and tear and in volume of games. So I'm not too worried about Cam Smith right now. I'm not stressing out about him. I don't have the official Houston Astros Space Cadet Sports Panic Meter out for Cam Smith. We need him to grow in confidence, but we also want his future to remain healthy. That is a good thing, to make sure the future of our team is healthy and we're not just throwing him out there and exhausting him when he doesn't have the conditioning for it quite yet. So it's fantastic to have Jesus Sanchez right now in right, because he can take some of the pressure off of Cam Smith, who is a rookie. Calamate. Cam Smith is still a rookie. We need some pressure off of him. I'm glad we have Jesus Sanchez there to help carry some of that load for Cam Smith. Today's game is going to be a good one, I think. We'll see which lineup is more patient. Before we wrap up our Houston Astros stories here, there is one more thing I wanted to mention. The Jose Altuve pretty woman fake story is what I'm trying to say. I forget, it was Louis Vuitton or some store that didn't allow Jose Altuve in. That's why I don't jump on trends. Apparently, in order to be a successful sports podcaster, you're supposed to react to everything as unhinged as possible, and before you even check if it's a real story or not. I obviously thought it was a little insane, but I didn't know if it was real or not. Obviously, this is fake news on social media. No journalist was picking it up, so I had no reason to believe it or get upset about it. But that news story was fake, folks. Just remember that they're trying to get everybody to react, to get distracted by real news stories and real things that are happening in this world right now. What a ridiculous fake story. Foosball is the devil, folks. Moving on real quickly to wrap up this podcast. Foosball is the devil. The Houston Texans just played and lost their first preseason game. A lot of fans are up in arms. We're talking about first team reps. We're talking about making, we want this player or that player to play first team reps. But then also, Brevin Jordan, tight end for Houston Texans, is injured. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, had a scary moment where, initially people were saying he tore his ACL. Then they're saying, he could come back this season. It maybe isn't a ACL tear. Just wait. Honestly, it is a huge deal for this Houston Texans secondary. But I have a lot of faith in head coach D'Amico Ryans in getting some players to step up and play here. So hopefully the secondary will be figured out. Obviously there is some story. There's definitely stories of I believe it's just another safety that's having legal troubles. So the Houston Texans secondary is kind of taking a huge hit right now. So we'll see as the preseason continues and progresses what the Houston Texans what the Houston Texans will look like going forward with those injuries. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a notification right now. I'm trying to see if that is actually breaking news or that's something we already got. They just broke news to me that I already knew. It was just a notification. I just was worried. I was thinking that maybe there was a new story happening, and it wasn't. Anyway, moving on. Before we end, we're talking about the Houston Rockets. Folks, my mind is all over the place. Sorry, that news notification definitely just threw me off my game. The Houston Rockets will open the season against Oklahoma City Thunder when they raise their banner in Oklahoma City. I'm sure Kevin Durant would love to play spoiler in this game. The Rockets will also play the Lakers on Christmas. It's going to be a return to the limelight season for the Houston Rockets, so get ready for all the commentators. Get ready for all the Kevin Durant stands. It is going to be a much bigger media season for your Houston Rockets than they have had to deal with the last couple of seasons. And with that being said, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, pop it, kick it, skip it, smash all of those buttons for me. We are a small podcast and we only go as far as our listenership takes us. We are supported by listeners like you. Dun, 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 dun. So please share with a Houston fan or Australian in your life and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to this podcast. It really helps out to give that 5-star rating or to share. Check out the Substack, that's spacecadetsports.substack.com. You can subscribe to support the podcast, to support the blog, support me and Carla. Just give us a subscribe there. We try not to put too much behind a paywall, so that premium subscription is more just a way to financially support and help us out. If you have ideas as what you would like that premium subscription to be, what type of content you want behind that, we could talk about that. Let me know. More than anything, I just want to connect with other Houston Astros fans out there and have a positive space for Houston sports fans in general. You could also help support the podcast by merch. We have buying our merch is what I'm trying to say. We have a Cam Smith aircraft carrier hat. We have a Houston Rockets, Houston Cougars Don't Sleep on Houston hat. We have a Carla the dog hat coming out soon. You can go get that merch at Paul Salazar Jr. That's paulsalazarjr.net. Definitely check us out on social media. Let us know your takes. Let us know how you think the bullpen is going to shake out the next couple of weeks. Hopefully not much longer than that with this Josh Hader injury. Let us know at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram, at spacecadetsports.bsky.social on Blue Sky. Let me know specifically if you want. You could let me know personally, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you've gotten this far and you like me, you're like, I like that really weird host, that irreverent host that the internet calls me irreverent. I need more weird jokes from that guy. Find me on social media making jokes, memes, art, podcasts, and so much more at Paul Salazar Jr. Once again, that's paulsalazarjr.net, because I'm nothing but net, where you can find my other Substack and all my other nonsense if you're nasty. Thanks so much for listening. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos, vamos, Houston.
Houston Astros, Houston Texans, Houston Rockets, Houston Dynamo, Houston everything, Houston, born and raised, H-Town Red Space Cadet Sports.